Let's bring up our next storyteller, Emily.
Not used one of these before, so I hope it doesn't catch my heart racing right now. So my name is Emily. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to be reading some excerpts from a piece of creative nonfiction that I wrote about some time I spent interpreting for asylum seekers in a detention facility at the border while I was 5 months pregnant. It is called Mother of Exiles. The South Texas Family Residential Center is the largest family detention facility in the United States. It is the gate to America, the entry point for asylum seekers. When today's tempest-tossed arrive to ask the Mother of Exiles for refuge, Customs and Border Protection apprehends them, detains them in a short-term holding facility at the border, and then transports them to interior facilities such as this one. This particular residential center is specifically for mothers and their children. The facility consists of dozens of trailers in the desert. It is surrounded by chain-linked fencing, guarded by metal detectors. It is run by CoreCivic, one of the nation's most profitable prison corporations, with revenues upwards of $2 billion. The road to America is indeed paved with gold. Ostensibly, mothers and their children are detained in order to have the opportunity to make an asylum claim. Quick and dirty primer in asylum law. Asylum is a legal protection granted to anyone who has a well-founded fear of persecution based on the membership of a social group. So let's say your ex-husband, an influential politician, has threatened to kill you. If you can drag yourself all the way to the United States, present yourself to a border agent, convince him that you are afraid of returning to your home country, he will put you in a detention facility instead of turning you right back around. Once in detention, you will eventually meet face-to-face with an asylum officer who will determine if you have a credible fear that might hold up in front of a judge. If you do, you are released with court date in hand. If not, you are deported. This is the game Lady Liberty plays. The abbreviated rules for a credible fear are as follows. 1, there must be a threat against you and it must be active and ongoing. 2, you need to show that your government cannot or will not protect you. And 3, pay attention for this one, you must demonstrate that your fear is based on your membership of a social group. The social group is the crux of the whole thing. You lose the game if your life is in danger because you saw something or live in the wrong neighborhood or were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The threat must be targeted. Maybe it's because you're indigenous or a person of faith or queer or an activist or something else you cannot change. Fear, just like people, is not created equal. This means that migrant mothers must cram the chaos of nightmares into a simple equation. A riotous life becomes a testimony, their trauma, their ticket. These mothers and children are balancing on a piece of barbed wire, waiting to see if they will fall back or forward, sure only that either direction is a long way down. I visited the detention center in the summer of 2019 as an interpreter for volunteer attorneys. But that week saw an overwhelming number of detainees and an underwhelming number of attorneys. So I frequently worked by myself with mothers, consulting with the legal experts as needed. The very first mother I spoke with was Marta, a 30-something with 2 preteens in tow. She had fled after months of intensifying harassment from gang members in her barrio. She had refused to cooperate with the gang's extortions and demands, and their threats had begun to escalate. Marta knew what these men were capable of. She had heard rumors of the kidnapping, stumbled upon burned bodies in the street. She had seen the outlines of American-made guns beneath their clothes as they rode past her home on their motos. And so, she grabbed the hands of her children and ran all the way to the United States. As she tells her story, I begin to calculate her fear. Her terror is real, that much is true. There are goosebumps on her arm as she speaks. But it doesn't fit into the law. She's missing too many details. How does she know there's a threat? What did the gang actually say? And, most importantly, what is the social group? Is it because she's a Christian? Is it because her skin is browner than others in her neighborhood? Is it because of how she votes? The answers to these questions is no. I will not lie to the officer, she insists, even though I have not asked her to. I'm a good person, a believer. I cannot tell a lie. Martha is the George Washington of immigrant mother detainees. I eventually consult with the lead attorney, explaining the social group problem. Call the family, she tells me. Maybe they know something. Calling the family is always the next step. Martha has had no contact with her family since she fled, and she's ecstatic to be able to talk to them. We wait until one of the phone lines is free, her foot tapping impatiently under the table. She knows her sister's cell phone by memory, and we dial, stumbling through the country codes, but eventually pressing the correct string of digits. The line immediately clicks to an automated message. The sister has not been able to add minutes to the cell phone. Martha's body slumps in her chair, the optimism knocked right out of her by the operator's voice. She racks her memory for other numbers she knows, brainstorming with her kids, and eventually she recalls that the neighbors have a landline. We call them, get through, they send their little girl running to find Martha's sister. When the sister finally breathes onto the phone, Martha starts to sob. The sister starts to sob. I am okay, they assure the other. We are okay, are you? I give them a minute to cradle the phone, breathing together in their shared relief, but only a minute. Our time is ticking. Martha puts the phone on speaker, and I hear her sister's voice, crackling in the distance as though we have called another universe altogether. I explain that I'm trying to help Martha, and I need to know if the gang has come to look for her. Martha's sister doesn't immediately answer my question. Instead, she begins to beg me, plead with me, as if the only lifeline for Martha is whether or not I personally can muster the compassion. Do not send her back. The sister is weeping. I am begging you, she cannot come back. It is not my decision. God, I wish it were my decision. This is what I need the sister to tell me. What we need, what we want, is for the gang members to threaten to kill Martha's child. Threatening the child to extort the mother is the linchpin because it means there is a social group. The child's life is in danger due to the family is a social group. We do a twisted little celebratory dance in our head when we find this out because this threat is the ticket to their freedom. And damn those fucking pandilleros that don't threaten the children. It's totally useless. The story doesn't work if only the mother is threatened. This is a twisted little game we play. Martha's sister says, yes, the men have come around. They have asked for Martha. They have also asked for Martha's daughter. The sister says this with a sob, and Martha goes so white, I think she might pass out with this information that the men know her daughter's name. It is horrific. But it is also exactly what we need. Martha has a credible fear. I worked with Abigail for 5 hours trying to find her credible fear. Some consultations lasted 15 minutes, and we rushed through these, the attorneys pressing us, pointing to the line of other women waiting. But Abigail was not a 15-minute case. Her problem? She left before she had been directly threatened. Abigail was a survivor, living on her own since her early teen years, fighting for her place in the world. She had recently opened a small vegetable stand in a market. She was so proud to be a business owner, to make her own hours, to have something to show for herself. But she soon learned that every other vendor in that market was being extorted for every cent they made. All these vendors paying for their lives with every block of cheese, every cut of meat, every bag of yogurt. She saw the writing on the wall. Actually, she literally saw the writing on a note that had been slid under her neighbor's stall. She fled with her 10-year-old son before a note could arrive for her. This story is not enough. It is nowhere near enough. It is a puny, wretched rendering of enough. So we start digging. Tell me about your son's father. Tell me about your parents, your neighbors, your church, your past, your present, your future. Tell this stranger every painful, poisonous, terrible detail about how you were abandoned, how you lived on the streets, how you were molested. Tell me about the bombing shrapnel, the bus route shakedowns, the fire in your home. Tell me how you have nothing to return to except fear. Tell this stranger every bad thing. I just shake my head as she talks, her brow furrowed. The assaults aren't targeted enough. The poverty is too systemic, the homelessness too tangential, the bombing too incidental, her son's future too peripheral, her fear too theoretical. Nothing's good enough. I cannot find her credible fear. After 5 hours, I give up. I slump in the chair, my body no longer able to bear the weight of her life on my shoulders. Her eyes are red and puffy. I apologize for my intrusiveness, for meeting her trauma with rejection, for my ultimate inability to provide useful counsel. I ask her how she feels. Desahogada, she tells me, unburdened. I have never said all those things out loud before. What a miraculous response. I want to hug her in my sheer relief that this torture has not undone her, but only unburdened her. I cannot hug her, of course, with the Korsavik staff staring us down. Instead, I embrace her with my eyes, my hands to my heart, bowing my head to her courage and strength. Did she make it past the asylum officer? After 5 hours, I referred her to the resident attorney, and I did not see her again. Volunteers are given access to the online case notes for 2 weeks after we leave so we can look up the results of the cases we worked on. I meant to look. I tried. But my heart would start racing, my fingers stiffening at the keyboard when I went to type in the website, my own fear preventing me from looking. So I don't know what happened to Abigail. One of the volunteer attorneys had brought her own 19-year-old daughter as her interpreter. This mother-daughter duo fascinated me. The ways in which they together welcomed each woman, how both the love and history is written on their body language, legible even from the other side of the room. On the last day, the mother pointed to my pregnant belly, asking with only a little irony, "Maybe you will bring your daughter back here someday." Is this what it is? Mothers and their babies embracing mothers and their babies. America as the mother of exiles is not entirely true. No, but the nation is built from the might of mothers who had the courage to flee and the might of mothers who will force America to keep its promises. The work is dirty, but the mothers of exiles remain. Thank you.